We're in the middle of July. It's almost time to draft in our redraft leagues. We're drafting in best ball right now in Underdog Fantasy. Today, we're going to be looking at wide receivers, going down the board in ADP, looking at the values, the advanced metrics, the good, the bad, the ugly. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're looking at players every day. We're looking at their values, what they did last year, projecting out or helping you with your drafts. And we're going to be helping you set your lineups. And we're doing this all year long for the rest of the year. Click that button. Stop missing out. We're starting off with our first wide receiver today, Malik Neighbors. 5th wide receiver off the board, ranked 9th overall. Underdog Fantasy ADP. Target share elite, 35%. Number 1 per player profiler. 170 targets, 11.3 targets per game. That's nasty. If you get a reduction to like 9, that's still nasty. Like, you can get a huge reduction percentage-wise, and it's still nasty. He was so high up there. Almost 100% route participation rate. We were pushing 40 routes a game with 36.3. He was running a lot of sprints, and the balls were coming his way. That's what that was saying. 8 at 9.5, but he was getting all the targets, so he was going to get the short. He was going to get the deep. He was one of the top wide receivers in the league getting deep targets. Air yards per game, 107 air yards per game. So you may want to look at that when you're getting so many targets racked up. I look for Russell Wilson to keep peppering him. I think that was in the conversation when they brought him in. I think when they bring quarterbacks, they got to make sure that they're right for Malik Neighbors. I think Malik Neighbors is their guy. And when I watch this coaching staff, they got the fat guy energy. And when it's the fat guy energy, they overindulge. And Malik Neighbors, the first-round pick. You're looking here. You got some running backs around him. You got Nico Collins, Amon-Ra, Puka Nacua, CeeDee Lamb. Take your pick your poison, whatever you want to call that. You also got running backs. Now the strategy around this, you go Malik Neighbors. Are you going running back? Or are you going to keep rolling wide receiver? What if you get Malik Neighbors and a Drake London just following down the board there, or an A.J. Brown, Ladd McConkey? In the 3rd round, you got like a Kyron Williams and a few other running backs. You could do that. You go 3-piece up at wide receiver, then you start looking at running back, and you pound running back late. You're going to be looking good at wide receiver. You're going to have a couple wide receivers easily 25+% target share with good ADOTs, which is going to be nasty. That's going to be a good cornerstone of your offense there, and then you're hoping to hit at running back. That's the thing about that. But what I like about this year's draft is that if you hit on one of these top wide receivers and you're in the back end of that first round, you can get 2 of them and still be all right at running back in the 3rd round, getting good workload at least. And then in the back end of this year's draft, you can really hammer upside. You can get good tier 2 or RB2 running backs, and then also upside rookies all throughout the back end of the draft. And you're loaded. You kind of got hero wide receiver going on, and you're sprinkling in other wide receivers down the draft board while you're also going hero RB, which is something I don't think people talk about too much, but I'm not listening to anybody either. The thing about his scoring last year, we had 5 wide receiver 1 weeks. Hardly any downers, though. 1 down week, week 7. We're in double digits every week, 18.2 points per game. Can Russ cook with the Giants? Offensive line is going to be interesting. Is Jameis Winston going to be in there? If Jameis Winston's going to be in there for some time, which is possible, you know targets are going to be peppered to Malik Neighbors. You know it's going to be deep downfield. Malik Neighbors, expensive, but so is Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver 15 off the board, 27 overall, being drafted as a 3rd-round pick. That being said, when you're looking at opportunity costs, it's him, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall. And for a rookie season, a 22.2% target share, running on 91.8% of the routes, 8 out of 13.5, 2 wide receiver 1 weeks, a lot of down weeks, 11.7. Fantasy-wise, it's a sour taste in your mouth, but you look back and don't think about last year's draft capital. Think of this as your usual rookie wide receiver who got drafted in the 1st round of the NFL draft. You look at that target share, you look at that ADOT, and there's a chance that if we take a step forward, this could be a monster season. But The quarterback play is an issue with him. We got to get some accurate targets funneling his way. There's some ambiguousness in his profile right now. But really, when you look at this, you're looking at wide receivers that needs things to break their way anyways. Devontae Adams' new team. He seems like the safest of the bunch. Garrett Wilson, Justin Fields, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Sam Darnold. Terry McLaurin seems fairly safe when you look at him, but he's also priced up compared to previous seasons. We got Breece Hall, Kyren Williams. Breece Hall's at a good price there. And if you're looking at Marvin Harrison Jr. in your basic redraft leagues, he's going to be cheaper than this due to the sour taste. Depending on what type of redraft league you're in, if you're drafting with savvy drafters, he'll be up there a bit. If you're drafting with Martha from accounting, you're going to catch him at a good discount for a 20+% target share and ADOT in the double digits. The thing is, when you're making this play, it's a speculation play. That's it. Speculation play means you're gambling for that upside. The question is, are you doing it? Are you not? That's it. That's it. Are you gambling on the upside? There's other players here to look at. It is what it is. It could be much like last year. I would guess there's some sort of step forward. He's jacked up a little bit more. If you look at his body, and he was a rookie last year, I expect some sort of step forward this year. Either it's immense or it's just going to gradually ramp up until we get some change, but nothing changes unless something changes. One change we do note is he has ramped up his body a little bit. And on top of that, more experience in the NFL with a second off season. We're looking at Marvin Harrison Jr. here, like the specs here for workload, 22% target share, ADOT 13.5. You're chasing a lot of wide receivers with that. I would like the target share to ramp up. Another question here. Tight end spot is heavy there with the Cardinals. Is that going to hurt him hitting that upside? Are you worried about that? Are you worried about that? What if the run game takes off? What if we get injuries at the running back position? They got to resort to throwing it more. What if game scripts push him a little bit more? What if they push him down a little bit more? Are you in or out on Marvin Harrison Jr.? Now we're looking at J-Mo. Wide receiver 25 off the board. 3 wide receiver 1 weeks. 3 wide receiver 2 weeks. Target share 18.9. ADOT though 11.4. But short targets trying to break loose for that. Yeah. That's the thing about that, because we got that 4.3 speed, but we can shake it loose downfield. Still getting those deep targets. And we're also getting good volume of targets in a lot of these games. Look at week 10 to week 18. 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, 8. 13.7 points per game. You know I look week to week. I don't look points per game. I look at points per game, but I kind of like step aside, look at week to week, because I want to see how they're scoring. He does not have that many low games, really, especially look from week 10 onward. You had 2 of them, but 3 of them technically, and we were fairly consistent. The ADOT's good, and you know in matchups where you can beat them deep, it's going to be higher, unless they're trying to get that yak. So you know he's getting pushed downfield. 70 air yards a game. You got competition in his offense. He's always going to be volatile. Will Fuller is one of his outcomes or comparable statistically, not on field, when it comes to just overall metrics, 40 time, how he wins downfield, due to the volatility of targets and volatility of deep balls. But the volatility of deep balls gives you that Will Fuller effect, where if you bring in 1 or 2 of those deep balls, you're splashing. You're splashing, and this is what he does. 3 weeks, 20+ fantasy points. Multiple weeks above 15. Double digits a lot of time. He's more consistent than Will Fuller, and he's more consistent over multiple years than Will Fuller. Now you're looking at the price tag. You got Xavier Worthy. Now what if he takes a step forward? You're starting to look at tight end. You got some other wide receivers. There's some questions with all these wide receivers, but you know what you're getting. He's great for best ball. He's great for underdog. Lineup setting could be a head scratcher some weeks. You have to be smart setting your lineups. You have to be good at that. If you're good at setting lineups, a guy like this is amazing for you. You know to look at the over-unders. You know to look at the matchups when it comes to how they give up deep balls on the other side of the ball and everything else. Are you looking at running back here? Did you go wide receiver, and now you're looking at your second running back, or you're looking at your even first running back? You want to take down Marion Hampton upside. You're getting James Cook, or Kenneth Walker, you're just paying up. Some of these running backs in the 5th round will come up in basic redraft leagues, so you're looking at that. J-Mo could be a little bit cheaper in home leagues. That's something to look at 5th, 6th round. Wide receivers will get bumped up a bit while running backs get bumped up. But what I like about him, he's great for best ball. If you're good at setting lineups, is a good wide receiver to capitalize on those spike weeks. He's always getting better. That's what they're saying in the media. He took a big step forward last year in training camp. Training camp's when we're going to get more clips from the Lions because they reduced some of their practices this spring due to having extra practices in training camp. So we're going to get more clips from that. Another wide receiver that's probably going to just get better over time, and we're watching him play out here. Wide receiver 25, an upside play. But Chris Olave missed a lot of games due to the concussions, but we're looking at him round 6, underdog, cheaper than that. Home league drafts, so probably 7, 8, 9. Wide receiver 35 off the board, 63rd player overall. When he was on the field, 19% target share, 8 out of 10.3. But the thing about that, some of these games were in and outs, and some of these games we had to come out. So that affected those numbers, especially when you look at route participation. So it's not really a true number when you're looking at where he's getting drafted at and who's around him. Jordan Addison, Chris Godwin, Jerry Jeudy, Deebo Samuel, Jacoby Myers. They all seem a little bit safer due to the quarterback situation there with the Saints. You got Rattler versus Shuck right now. We're watching that like a hawk in training camp. Not just for the quarterbacks, but for the ancillary proxy players around them like Chris Olave. I expect him to be getting a route participation rate 80% range or higher. I expect him to be on the field. I expect it to be deep ball city. And I expect him to get okay workload. I think he's going to be volatile, though. I think the quarterback play is going to be interesting. You need one of those guys to exceed expectations. We saw Rattler last year, wasn't looking good, but he didn't have any wide receivers to throw the ball to on the back half of the season anyway, so maybe he takes a step forward. But Rattler was volatile in college. He is very volatile in college. Like, you look at the potential upside, but you also saw the potential downside, and he had to transfer out. The potential downside is grand. Shuck is a rookie with immense arm talent, but he needs time to develop, but he's kind of thrusted in there. We're looking at this. This could be a situation where if one of those quarterbacks takes off, it could be great for Olave because both of them are aggressive pushing it downfield. And he's with Rashid Shaheed. Brandon Cooks is back. This is going to be an interesting situation, but you can also pay down and get Stephon Diggs, Khalil Shakur, Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, or go with some of these running backs as dead zone's getting sexy this year. That's what I like. I want to be good at wide receiver so I can take care of these running backs, so I can clean up here in the middle rounds. That's what I want to do. I want to get my upside rookie. I kind of want to get that veteran on the back end as my RB2, RB3. Kind of want to clean up here, so I kind of want to feel good at wide receiver before I get to this range. That's part of my strategy when I keep looking at this. I want to feel good at wide receiver before I get to this range. I call it range. That's what I'm looking at. I want to make sure I feel good. I don't want to feel like I have to take a wide receiver here. I want to make sure that I'm in love with the pick. I'm taking value. That's what this says to me. Wide receiver 45 off the board, Stephon Diggs, a little bit cheaper. Might be even cheaper once it comes to home league time. But he's also a steady name. But you're looking at the running backs around him, it's really him versus the rookie running backs. And if you're FOMOing to patch up your RB2 or RB3 with a veteran who's sharing the workload, but 15.2 points per game, we went over the clips. He's back healthy. He's back healthy. He's looking good. He's been a good mentor for the Patriots wide receivers, and he's going to be getting a lot of targets. Drake May's going to pepper him. And if he's going to hold up a full season, that's a question, but it's priced appropriately. He could be looking good with the Patriots. That's the thing about this. He's been looking good in the practices. I can definitely give you that testament. It's limited, like it's just against air, but he's been looking good with that. He's Stephon Diggs. He's an elite wide receiver and elite talent. Elite talents tend to age better than just your so-so good, great talents. That's the thing about this at the wide receiver spots. Stephon Diggs versus Khalil Shakur, Jaden Reed, Josh Downs, Mika Ibuka, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, Cooper Kupp. The upside is more likely to hit. More likely to hit for him. Because he's already done it before with multiple teams. He did it last year. Look at what he did last year. New team with a lot of target competition. You got 3 wide receiver 2 weeks, 1 wide receiver 1 week. We got Drake May with wide receivers there, but the target competition isn't like Nico Collins. So that's something to pay attention to. Are we going to be good throughout the whole training camp? That's another question. And is he going to be cheaper in your home league? If you're catching him rounds 8, 9, 10, that's a tremendous value for the upside. That's something to look at. We got a good target share last year, 23.9%. So we can rack up targets still. 8 targets a game last year. So we can still create separation. We're still good. We can still get that opportunity. We were running on almost 90% of the routes last year. That's saying, hey, he's still good. That's what those numbers are saying. He's still able to get it done in the league. After this injury, it might be a different question. But more than likely, it's still like this from what we're seeing in practice. Now we're looking at Rashid Shaheed. He had some injuries last year. Now we're back. It's just a question of the quarterbacks. Olave, Cooks, Shaheed. Deep targets, though, an 8 out of 17.6. Target share, 24.6. I would love to see what those numbers would look like over a full season with a 25% target share and an 8-out push in 18. I would love to see that. I would love if he had a full season with that, with good quarterback play. I would love to see that. That's elite work rate. I expect some of that target share to reduce a little bit with Brandon Cooks there. I expect that. And then on top of that, I expect the 8-out to always be high with him. I expect him to have that Will Fuller effect where he could bring on any target deep downfield and give you a cash performance and give you at least a few of them every week. Last year, it was hitting hard, but I expect him to give you a few big games this year as long as he's healthy and on the field. That's the thing about this. He's great for best ball. Like in underdog drafts, like you're just looking at this, Trey Harris, Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman could be an upside dandy. You're starting to look at these wide receivers. Rashad Bateman's good for upside, but like you're kind of hoping he turns into what Rashid Shaheed's getting if they can still do it with these quarterbacks. Luther Burden's a talent that could turn things around drastically. But you're looking at this. If we can get a target share with the additions here, new quarterbacks, around 20%, 8-out, 13 to 15, that's a good best ball play. I think the steadiness might still be there, but it might be more volatile this year. Like it might revert back to the year prior to where it's up and down. He's still getting targets. He's still getting volume. However, if you look at him in redraft, home leagues, he's going to be cheaper. 10, 11, 12th round. He's going to give you those upside moments still. I think that's good value for that. But the thing about this is I want to hammer these running backs still. There's some running backs here. Like I'm going hard running back. Once I get around 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 rounds. Like I'm going to make sure I'm just good on the top end of wide receiver. There's so many good running backs where attrition hits. I'm going to be good to go. And a lot of these wide receivers in this range are volatile. Now we're looking at Jack Betch. 65th wide receiver off the board. 151 overall. Round 13. And you notice more tight ends are coming off the board here. More running backs are coming off the board here. The strategy I'm talking about, just going deep at running back later in drafts, a lot of people are implementing here, especially on Underdog Fantasy. And he's an upside play. He's going to be using the slot. That's what it sounds like we're seeing out of the Raiders right now. And he's an upside play. He's very steady. He's very reliable. I could definitely see him carving out a role here with the Raiders. Does that look like Justin Jefferson? No. But does it look like something that you can play around with your lineups once we get around Halloween time, Thanksgiving time? Possibly. Trey Tucker was getting 5+ targets a game certain times of the season last year when attrition hit. Jack Betch could be getting 5+ targets a game down the road once he's more developed. That's something we could look at. They're talking about Bowers, Jacoby Myers there. You got some competition. Betch is an upside play in the later rounds, and it's just a lottery ticket you want to look at. Another one's Alec Pierce. He's built for best ball. An 8 out of 21.7. That's elite. Target share, under 15% at 14.3. So looking at what he did last year, he either got you wide receiver 1 weeks or nothing with 1 wide receiver 2 week in there. So he had 5 games. 4 wide receiver 1 weeks, though. So if he brings in that deep ball, he's cashing. So daily fantasy football, if he's cheap, and you're looking for an upside play in that tournament, I would not suggest cash. That is a guy to look at. That is a guy that could win you $1 million. That is a guy that can win you an extra couple bands that week if he hits. He hit 4 times. He won people some bands last year. He could win you some bands. Great for best ball. Headache setting lineups with. Round 15, double-digit lottery ticket zone. He's in the lottery ticket zone. I like to go running back here. Rookie wide receiver, young wide receiver. I don't think you're ever going to get like a top-tier wide receiver out of him, but he's best for best ball and DFS, and he can win you some money. That's the thing about that. He can win you a lot of money. Now we're looking at Tyler Boyd here. New team, new quarterback in Cam Ward, some competition in the offense. Wide receiver 85 off the board, 208 overall. We got Van Jefferson, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, but we got some rookie wide receivers here. Xavier Restrepo, UDFA, but bringing some noise. Alec Aomanor, and you got the speedster there as well. And Treylon Burks lurking. Very ambiguous wide receiver depth chart. I think we're just going to be volatile this year. He's an upside play, but when you're looking at the wide receivers in his range, would you rather go A.D. Mitchell? Would you rather go Tutu Atwell? Due to being a little bit more consistent, due to their team being a little bit more consistent, would you rather go Keaton Mitchell, Blake Corum, Rashard Smith, taking that upside running back, or what other running backs are on the board? Because there's other rookie running backs that you could be drafting that could just waltz in to a starter role if players get hurt. That's something to look at. But a wide receiver 95, Jalen Tolbert. The Cowboys love this kid. George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb together will get 50 to 60% of the targets. And then about 15 to 20% of the targets is going to go to the tight end spot. A little bit's going to be sprinkled to the running back. There ain't going to be much left. The thing about Jalen Tolbert, I feel like every year he gets incrementally a little better. Just a little. So we might go from 8.9 points per game to like 9.2. I'm not lying. 9.5. Best ball? Not really. And Underdog Fantasy saying that because he's not really getting drafted. Maybe if there's attrition. DFS for a very cheap wide receiver because he's going to be out in the field. He'll get some deeper targets, maybe some red zone looks. Maybe you're hoping for that random catch, but that's for tournaments where you're trying to be contrarian, as in different from the field, and you're trying to hope to hit on that big game of the season. He's going to have one or two. The rest of the season is going to be meh. That's what you're looking at. Redraft-wise, you're really looking at the health of Pickens and Lamb there. You're really looking at that. With those two wide receivers in the room, targets are going to go to them mostly. That's what we're going to see. They're going to get about 60% of targets on the season. You're looking at Noah Brown. This is a guy to pay attention to. If you're looking for a deep play. Like if you're in a deeper redraft league, if you're looking at a cheap dynasty get to help patch you up, because you don't want to pay up just in case you're not going to make it to the playoffs and you want to keep capital. This could be a guy, because look at week 6 to 13 here before the injury. 8 targets, 7, 6, 7, 4, 10, 4. He was getting volume as he was acclimating to the Commanders. 17.5% target share, but remember the lower weeks were in there as he was acclimating. ADOT was good. You add in Deebo Samuel, but can he play a full season? Is Luke McCaffrey taking a step forward in his second year? Michael Gallup was brought in. What are we getting back out of him? There is some question marks here. Is he going to be good to go this year? Noah Brown, though, he's not drafted. He's not being drafted in basic leagues, but you throw this out here strategy-wise if you're in a deeper league, if you're starting something crazy like 5, 6, 7 wide receivers or something like that. He did have a run of targets last year. Being drafted as the 105th wide receiver off the board, I mean, that just answers your question of whether or not to draft him because nobody else really is. But there is something here ringing up in his numbers. There are questions with this depth chart, though. Jalen Lane's a guy to pay attention to from OTAs, spring ball with the Commanders. I'm starting to call it spring ball because Rick Camp, OTAs, mini camp, just call it spring ball. And then training camp. Noah Brown's a guy to watch workout rise when it comes to these numbers. Maybe more for DFS is starting to run more routes, getting more opportunities as a cheap gamble. hard for best ball unless something happens to Deebo Samuel. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I want to hear about that. Want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.